and the organization's command warrant officer who represents the concerns of the enlisted or the Marines, Mr. Ramon Stork.
Thank you, Commodore. You know, I always said to myself when I came back from studies abroad that if I had to join an armed forces, it would be the Defense Force. You know, and not only because you all seem to be the fittest of the armed forces, but also I really admire the uniform. You know, great respect for the uniform. All right. So is there reservists on the? There is reservists. I'm going to look at that. He's going to talk about that. Awesome. Good, good. Okay. But I have one joke. Now, my club normally doesn't like my jokes. I'm probably not a jokes teller. So anyway, I'll try my hand again. You all, if you don't like this one, I think you all have to check yourselves. All right. Let me get this one very quickly. Okay. There we go. So a man was driving down the road when a policeman stopped him. Must have been Rotarian being in his days of a young officer. The officer looked in the back of the man's truck and said, "Why are these penguins in your truck?" The man replied, "These are my penguins. They belong to me." "You need to take them to the zoo," the policeman said. So the next day, the officer saw the same guy driving down the road again, and he pulled him over and he said the penguins were still in the truck, but they were wearing sunglasses this time. "I thought I told you to take these penguins to the zoo," the officer said. "I did," the man replied, "and today I'm taking them to the beach." Oh, at least I got Commodore again. My goodness, thank you. All right, that man has a sense of humor. Mr. President, I turn it over to you. Thank you, Commodore.
One of the traditions in our club is when the sergeant at arms does a really bad joke, he also gets fined. And so, how much we said last week? $20? Okay, so we start you off with $20, and we can see how we end up in the afternoon. But again, so good to have all of you joining us this afternoon here at the Rotary Club of Nassau, and of course our special guests who are joining us again today. Really a delight to have all of you in the house. Just by way of quick announcements, I shan't be long. This coming Saturday, as all of you should know or would know, talking Rotarians now. Tamika, yes, you'll listen, you gotta be here, right? There is the Red Cross Fair, and I see a number of you would have signed up. And so the plea continues to go out for all of you Rotarians, and of course, by extension, members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. We've got some t-shirts for you if you want to join us. But it's going to be at the Red Cross Fair. We're going between the hours of 10 a.m. until, now I see a lot of y'all signed up for the 11 to 1 shift. But y'all won't go home early. No, we need some people in the night. Owen? Okay? So everybody can't sign up for the 11 to 1 shift. Need some people to come and sign up for the later shift. I think I saw some people sign up for the 6 to 9, 6 to, ain't quite going after 9. They said they're going until after 9. So we're going to need a number of you to sign up for after that time, okay? So that's what really the plan is for this coming Saturday. So we look forward to seeing all of you. And I think that would be the end of my announcements. I don't want to belabor the time. I'm going to invite Danny now to come as we introduce our speaker for this afternoon. We're going to get right into it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Commodore Raymond King, a veteran of 37 years in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, enlisted on the 12th of January, 1987, as a member of New Entry 19. Commodore King was granted an appointment as a midshipman, completed his officer training at Britannia Royal Naval College, Dartmouth in 1990, and received his commission in 1992. King's most recent appointment included Port Controller as the Admiralty Marshal for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas prior to his appointment as Commander Defense Force on April 15, 2020. Throughout his career, Commodore King has held numerous seagoing appointments on board Bahama, Protector, and Dauntless class vessels as commanding executive operations and navigating officer, including shore-based appointments, service ride within defense headquarters, administrative, logistics, and operational branches. Commodore King has participated in many international courses and maintained fellowships with defense institutions. He has attained a Doctorate of Education degree, a Master's of Business Administration degree, Bachelor's of Arts degree, and Associates of Science degree. Additionally, he has co-authored 2 conference-accepted research papers and the author of the dissertation research, which examines scientific effect of organization agility on transnational crimes in Jamaica in 2015. He is a recipient of several medals and commendations awards. Commodore King has also served as a member of the National Disaster Committee, the National Anti-Drug Secretariat, as well as chairman of the Defense Commission Board. He has been recognized for his lifetime charitable efforts and contributions. He is married to the former Frederica Shermaine Clark, retired Force Chief Petty Officer for the past 31 years, the father of 2 sons and 7 loving grandchildren. An avid sports enthusiast, he also enjoys traveling and reading. King's personal mission is to share his knowledge and experience in mentoring others, whereby society collectively benefits. Please help me welcome our speaker today, Commodore Raymond King.
Thank you, you may be seated. Commodore King, a very pleasant good afternoon to you.
Thanks for the invitation.
We're very happy you've accepted the invitation, and as Danny was reading your bio, I did not have you for a grandfather. I didn't see you have that age on you quite yet, but again, congratulations. I want us to have a very candid conversation. The whole idea of you coming to have this chat with us this afternoon is really for us to really dig into what's happening with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. And one of the things that the team and I have said in respect to speakers coming in, and I'm happy you accepted this format as opposed to a lecture style discussion, is really us sitting down and having a very candid conversation. As Danny would have mentioned in reading your bio, your appointment in 2020, what would you consider so far to be the highlight of your having been in charge of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force today?
Several things that come to mind. One, having the opportunity to lead our great organization in our response to Hurricane Dorian, Grand Bahama, and in Abaco. Secondly, is having to take the organization through that global pandemic period,
Okay.
which was a major shift in our operations, our thinking. It was something unheard of, unseen before. And thirdly, now being asked to lead from our organization, as the country would have consented to supporting multinational security support mission in Haiti, and all of the preparation that is needed to ensure that we operate safely. And so those difficult periods in the life of our country, and in the Defense Force in particular, Dorian, COVID-19, now what's going on in Haiti, I've been able to relish those difficult periods to pull the most out of our members and be prepared mentally and physically to respond.
And I guess in the context of your preparation, I want to commend you in terms of the Defense Force. One of the things that you would have done just this year, I think it was about March 25th to 27th, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force would have hosted a symposium highlighting the women in the organization. How was that been, and what was really the driving force behind that symposium?
The driving force would be personal. Then I served as support controller. And I was able to travel internationally, attend International Maritime Organization meetings. I realized that there was a drive for gender equity worldwide. And so I got a deep appreciation for the need to help women to be more participative in all aspects of every organization. So I had that awareness as the port controller. Having assumed command, I had spoken to my predecessor, Commodore Roderick Bull. I asked him what rubric did he use in determining what percentage of women to enlist to promote his appointments for them. And he said he often used the percentage of the female population in the organization, which hovered around some 16.5%. And so what I've done, have increased significantly.
Okay,
Basically, every new entry that we would have enlisted, I took it as high as 30%.
oh yeah,
Even though the Defense Force has a 18.5% female ratio. My most recent promotion exercise included up to 30% of the women in the service, including the promotion of our first two captains, female captains. And so I've been very deliberate in involving women in every aspect of our decision-making in terms of training and development opportunities, their appointments. I've been very, very deliberate in those decisions. We now have significant security cooperation of the United States Northern Command with our Women, Peace and Security Initiative. I would have gotten the Honorable Minister to agree and to sign off on a gender optimization policy for the organization. At a minimum, every decision that is made would consider the ratio of women in the service at a minimum, and to ensure that certain percentages of training opportunities, at least 1/3 for the every decision.
okay,
And so I have a deep appreciation for the role and involvement of women, what they bring to the decision-making process, very diverse. As men, we think logically, women more emotionally, but there's a place for it. And I find that you make better decisions once you involve women and make them a part of it. So personally, it's a personal mission. I've completely demonstrated that in every sphere of my administration of the Royal Bahamas.
what is the current enrollment now of officers? I know there's a distinction between, how do you call it, enlisted or, but what is the current enrollment?
Right now, we are about 1,750. We've lost some persons recently, persons decided through attrition. Some persons may have died, persons decided to move on. But we have an enlistment entry in now. The 61st male entry and the 30th female entry. Some 130 persons in training now. They're looking forward to their passing of parade late June.
Okay,
We also have a reservist entry in.
excellent.
We have some 19 reservists who are excited for their graduation. It's at the end of this month.
Okay,
And so we continue to enlist. And we continue to make the organization as attractive as possible to be able to attract qualified, educated persons to contribute and continue to build towards a professional weakness.
so there is some hope for persons like myself and Jamal.
I'm gonna say that.
When you speak of the complement of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, there is the concern in the mind of some reporters, and I must confess to you, I share that concern, as to whether or not we have sufficient members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. More specifically, whether we have enough to deploy outside of the Bahamas, more specifically to Haiti. Now, I think in one of the recent interviews that you would have shared, you would have said to the extent that the deployment is more so specific to, I think, maritime I'd like you, Commodore, to settle my fears as to A, whether or not we have sufficient officers for that kind of deployment. And more specifically, what exactly are they going to be doing on the deployment?
The Defense Force is a multi-talented, multifaceted organization. It's unique.
Mhm.
We manage stressful and demanding situations very. That is why we consider the last line of defense. We don't have any associations, not involved in union movements, and all else fail, military steps. And that is cultivated in us from our basic training. The military is not for everyone. I will tell you, it's not for everyone. It has to become aware of it. If we understand that everything we do has national implications, and the country is relying and depending on us. Now, with respect to our manpower, where is adequate, I would have done several human audits from the early 2017s. And then when during the time of Commodore Telespettler, I would have done those. And so the ideal manpower strength that we're aiming for is at least 3,000, a force strength 3,000. And that is based on the premise of the demand or human capital that we need to effectively decentralize our operations through government.
Okay.
Okay, and so we're working towards that end. I would have had the government support in terms of recruitment, motions, and everything. We continue to build. Fixed asset acquisitions, I've had successive government support, full support. And so the manpower, we continue to address that issue. With respect to deploying persons outside of the Bahamas, the Bahamians may not realize it, but we participate in regional exercises. There's an exercise run by the United States Southern Command annually called Trade Winds. And last year it was held in Guyana, and we would have deployed a team of almost 60 persons to Guyana, either to be a part of the cybersecurity, maritime as observers, or the infantry components. Okay, we have HMBS Bahamas about to sail within a few days to Barbados. Trade Winds is being held in Barbados. And so we have persons who deploy. We must not be afraid to continue to train and develop and to build our military capabilities. And we do that. Okay. And with respect to Haiti and what's going on there, the government has consented to us making available 50 persons for 4 months. For those 50 persons are actually going to be the persons on board our vessels. Our largest craft as we speak carries a crew of 62 persons. Now the complement of that crew will differ from the normal deployments, because we're going to have fire parties, we're going to have infantry persons, we're going to have drone persons support the communication. And we will do what we're doing now. The blockade that we have in place will be no different from our formal involvement in Haiti to protect the Bahamas, the southern coast, the northern coast of Haiti, the Windward Passage, and the Old Bahama Channel. And we're doing that quite effectively as we speak, but it doesn't say that we have all the resources we need. There are more. There are plans afoot to acquire more resources, and some things are actually in the procurement process.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that the maritime involvement of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force is in regards to the blockade?
That's a essential.
Okay.
Essential. Only footprint possible in Haiti. Possible. Could be if and when the embassy reopens. And they request to have additional security or intelligence personnel to augment their team.
Okay.
Now, because we would have declared as a UN member state that we would support the mission, the joint task force or headquarters construct has to be manned by persons from all of the countries who would have consented. So we may have a small footprint of persons who would be a part of the headquarters task force, but they wouldn't be involved in any security operations, strictly headquarters.
So as the deployment is limited to our maritime blockade involvement, why can't that be done within the territory of the Bahamas as opposed to outside the Bahamas?
Thing is, we don't have an agreement with the Republic of Haiti,
Mhm.
so we cannot enter into their territory. Simply can't. We can't even go inside of their exclusive economic zone, which extends 200 nautical miles, with the closest point between Nicaragua and the northern tip of Haiti is about 63 miles. So arbitrarily, you consider the midpoint. But the Bahamas has its delimitation lines, and we would measure outwards 12 nautical miles, and if the easy conflict is the midpoint. And so we don't have an agreement to embark, even though desirable, of Haitian shipwrights on board our vessels, which will give you the authority to even patrol closer to their homeland. And so we would be able to take the fight against the illegal migration closer to their home, turn them around, stop them and so on. But it's not intended for us to go into the Haitian territory. Regard the borders between us and them. We monitor any vessels leaving. We challenge any vessels going in. Those vessels could be trafficking weapons and ammunition.
Mhm.
And that only fuels what's going on in Haiti now. And so we stay on the high seas, outside of their territorial seas, but effectively guard our borders alongside right now at this moment. We have the United States Coast Guard. Like Turks and Caicos, we have their maritime units. And we're using the Al-Bahito. We would have deployed our aircraft for periods to assist with the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Because that's the safest and the most effective way to determine any shift in migration movements. You want to know that early. And so what we're doing now, we're basically on stage for what will come.
Fair enough. I want to read an article for you. And this is the Nassau Guardian. 15 Haitian immigrants were caught on a sloop in the Exumas on Saturday. The Royal Bahamas Defense Force said yesterday. So this is obviously taken from yesterday. The vessel was first sighted 8 miles southwest of Staniel Key. Now I'm no boatsman, if you can put it like that. But in reading this story, it suggests to me that this Haitian sloop was extremely close to Staniel Key within the Bahamas. And to my knowledge, they don't have near the kind of sophistication that the Royal Bahamas Defense Force has in terms of protecting our borders. So when you speak about the deployment, my concern is if an ill-fitted wooden sloop like that can make it so close, why is that happening? Is it the lack of manpower,
No.
technology?
No, they understand the context. The expanse of water in terms of miles, in terms of options that those migrant smugglers have. You measure from Nicaragua to Ilobos, even Venture's Cape. So we're moving along southwestern and along the whole Bahama town. Is in excess of some 300 nautical. It's wide.
Okay.
That is why it's ideal to try to confront them as soon as they get at a choke point. Right? But some of the challenges we'll be facing, and we've always faced this. Those Haitian sloops, very, very difficult to detect using our technology because they're wooden hulls. With persons on board, they sink low and so the detection is even more difficult. I've spent 80% of my career in operating. Yeah. And what you'll find is that even at night, you will have to be within 4 nautical miles of a Haitian sloop and you start to see a big echo. As you get closer, it becomes more pronounced, stationary. And so despite the technology, it is difficult using the radar technology to even detect. Now, when I spoke earlier about strategy to detect them early.
Mhm.
It's like any criminal network. If you're successfully stopping them with whatever they do, they're gonna ship. Sometimes it may take a vessel ending up where it wasn't expected for you to realize that a ship has been made. Those vessels now, they maneuver at night. They
Mhm.
maneuver. They can come up right along the northern coast of the island, cross the River Passage at night, right along the Cuban, the northern Cuban. They understand, and when they get sort of Ragged Island, then they can turn. And that is exactly what that particular vessel. They realized that we had stopped every vessel trying to make it either between Turks and Caicos, Inago and Ragged. They realized that what we were doing. And so they would have shipped their more. Okay, right along the Cuban border. And then turn off. Now, we get intelligence from the Cuban border. That intelligence was passed on to the team. Coast Guard had passed that intel, but at that time, the vessel appeared almost in safety to be heading along the Cuban coast towards the United States of America.
Mm.
But at nighttime, we just turned drastically north. So then we had to ship our assets to now come. But our body of water between Ragged Island and the southwestern end of our Great Bahama Bight, to guard against any sudden movement of any vessel who decide to use that structure. Right? But what we have in place is a multi-layered security force. Because we know the reality of it is, there are times a vessel may be that evasive. Are we talking about the United States Coast Guard with 6 vessels along the North Coast?
Mhm.
They run in the Orbit Hilo, they run in the Coast Guard aircraft, they run in our aircraft. And we have 6 vessels of them. And so they were clever enough to beat that line of defense. But our additional line of defense, they couldn't get past. Because if you get beyond one layer, you have a secondary and tertiary layer. We realize that one will always be evasive enough, but that one now is an indication of the shift in their tactics. That you now have to shift to meet them. Okay? And so to land in New Providence now, I will tell you, extremely difficult, given that coastal radar that we have. I wouldn't say what the effective range is. Once you get within a safe distance, and that picks you up, and if we are unable to identify you, you then become a target of interest for our small assets. I call our base, and I have a patrol unit to converge on, and that is for the third. But the Haitians have gotten very, very great. They've moved away from even using the traditional sails. They now use open hub, no sail, with outboard engines. And they're moving even faster.
Mm.
So once you receive that intel, you gotta have an asset within range
Right.
to intercept, because they're moving along very, very quickly. And it's even more difficult now to detect a vessel without a sail, carrying almost 300 persons on, sitting low in the water. And so the challenges are there, but we've done extremely well. I will tell you, for the last 4.5 years, we've done extremely well, and we've responded to that first wave. And we've intercepted every contact, and not to count the number of vessels that the United States Coast Guard would have turned around and escorted them back to the northern coast of Haiti. We've done extremely well. And so all events like that tells me that there is a shift, and we too need to shift in response to the new tactics being used. So I look critically in terms of what occurred, how could we prevent that? And it's it's like a game of chess, you have to adjust as you go. Right? And so we were good to intercept that vessel.
Mhm.
And I would like to thank the boating community, fishers, the local communities. If they see something, say something. But our challenge is the expanse of water. We have over 100,000 square miles of water to protect. And the migration isn't the only challenge we have to protect. We still have to guard against poaching vessels. We still have to guard against and be able to respond to intelligence on drug smuggling, which has a nexus with weapon smuggling. And so we've been asked to address all of those threats while still giving considerable focus for the migration. The porosity of the Commonwealth of Bahamas, it's extremely porous. We have multiple ports and harbors on uninhabited keys. That's a challenge. I mentioned the trends. The Haitians, they have a slew of options that they can use. They've changed the type of vessels they've used. Now they even use an American type sailboats because they're stealing these vessels, taking them into Haiti. And if you assume that, hey, that's just a traditional American, without challenging that vessel, you'll be surprised. Okay? And they're using technology themselves. Cuba has some software that they make available to boaters in the whole Bahama Channel. But those Haitians are now using that as for their GPS and their chart plots. And so they're being very strategic. They have the weather forecasts. And they're using the same technology that we use, even though it may not be as sophisticated as we have on. But they're using GPSs. They have the 7-day weather forecast. And those captains are, they're expert. The only difference between us and them, I would say, is the language barrier or change, a language difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say it seems as if we are outpaced, but if I were to take your comments again, we would have said in the report that from March 11th, this is 2024 now, you would have said, to April 6th, there was some 676 migrants that the RBDF would have apprehended. So again, it seems as if their technology seems to be outpacing our technology and our ability to apprehend them, as you would have said, at the choke point.
I would say their technology, we use the same technology.
Mhm.
I would say the trends that they're using them. Those vessels are even more difficult to intercept. If they have a sail, you have a better chance of picking up on the radar. But you have open hull vessels with just outboard engines sitting low in them. So it's the trending in terms of the type of vessels they use. They're now using outboard engines. They're not relying on sail anymore, right? And they're targeting you along those shorter routes. Most of those vessels would have been headed towards Turks and Caicos, but I couldn't take for granted that they won't go between the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos and try to make it to Chilutra or even Abaco. I have to guard against that. And so I wouldn't say they're outwitting us in technology. They have adapted the type of vessels, their mode of energizing those vessels, and so forth, which makes it extremely difficult. But in lieu of looking at those challenges, I would want to reflect on the hard work, the commitment, the dedication on behalf of our members, the relationship that we have with regional and international partners who also provide us satellite imagery of all of those areas. We have done exceptionally well. I don't want to take away. We've done exceptionally well. We haven't had any landings. We have stopped the first wave. We've poised now for any successive waves, but we have to be on our heels. We have to learn early using our aerial reconnaissance of any shift in tactics that they may use.
I'm going to come to the floor in a minute, but let me take a kind of shift here. Migration is one issue. But again, in the Bahamas, we lament and we cry about the influx of guns. What steps has the Royal Bahamas Defense Force taken or can take? Because it appears as if that the influx of illegal firearms are coming through the various ports, etc. What steps can the Royal Bahamas Defense Force take to kind of apprehend this serious flow of illegal firearms as you seek to guard our borders?
We conduct hundreds of boardings annually. The mode of transportation smuggling method, ammunition, weapons in this country is primarily via courier services. Straw purchases in the United States, and within 24 hours, they're being used in the commission of crimes. Courier services. We have those merchant vessels, those large cargo vessels. Those weapons are being transported on those. And I believe we still have the issue of the pleasure crafts. In terms of whether those vessels are actually declaring within 24 hours the weapons, or whether they have a complete and confirmed and validated declaration on behalf of the Bahamas, on the Customs Department. In terms of their diligence and vigilance in terms of those declarations. Right? And so in the Bahamas, I would tell you, primarily courier services. Okay, courier services, you have those large merchant vessels, the cargo vessels with those containers. Customs, unless they're based on intelligence, simply they don't have the capacity to check and scan every container. A lot of weapons are coming in. And so it's not really the vessels that we confront. The poaching vessels, you arrest them, they will have weapons. Okay, we arrest go fast drug vessels. Often you find weapons on, because they have weapons for their protection. Right? And what you would find is that before an interception occurs, if there's a chase, weapons and whatever is discarded. Okay. And so we've done a yeoman's job from our end, but on the flip side, in terms of law enforcement agency support, Royal Bahamas Defense Force has worked tirelessly with the Royal Bahamas Police Force in almost all of the operations being executed. And I get the daily reports in terms of the joint operations run between both agencies, the number of ammunition, weapon seized. We may not get the credit for this, but we have teams committed every day with the police force on the streets with them to curb this issue of illegal guns on the streets.
You speak about the collaboration between the police and the defense force, and to some extent, I see the defense force officers be commended. However, I've also heard the cry of fishermen at sea. We speak about the poachers and say, look, we are out here on the high seas. We seek to contact the Royal Bahamas Defense Force when we see a poaching vessel, and we get no support. And so we are left to fend for ourselves because we can't get the support that's necessary. So how do you speak to fishermen on the high seas and the support that they need and the ability of your assets to get to them in time to help them?
I have a different perspective.
Okay,
And
I suspected you would.
right. I am actually in the chat rooms, the Fishers Association's chat. So whatever they discuss, I get it. The Fishers have lauded the efforts of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force for the last 4 years. Right? In terms of their yields being higher, their traps not being tampered with. And they could see the nice trees and the biodiversity and the ecosystem still intact. That is the feedback I get directly from those fishers. Right? And I haven't heard an outcry like in previous years, many years ago. And I don't know if anyone in this room could recall hearing the outcry from the fishers, because I will tell you, whatever the concerns they have, you would hear it, you would get it. Right? Now, being able to communicate with the defense force, we make our frequencies available to them. They make their frequencies available. But we all now use a common satellite link, Starlink, real time. And we communicate now even more seamlessly. And our presence is there. In fact, in some cases, they say we bought them too much. But we've been able, despite the demand against migration, effectively mobilize our resources to be able to fend against poaching, drug smuggling. We've been in position whenever we would have gotten the intel from either the US or even the Cuban Border Patrol that go fast, just excellent the Windward Passage. and they pass it on to us. We're in position to respond. Right? And we have done extremely well, but you may have had your sources, but I am in the Fishers group and they address me directly with all their concerns.
Good.
And I listen to their concerns. And over the last 4 years, they've done so well. They're now complaining about the price being low. But you know what causes that? Go back to economics, eh? Demand and supply, scarcity and surplus.
Thank you. I've had a discussion with the Commodore. I don't want just you and I to have this dialogue, Commodore. President Wayne.
Thanks very much, Mr. Commodore. It was a beautiful presentation. You were comfortable yourself. I am just wondering, given that the migrants have now changed their method, their mode of operandi, okay? They've changed it. Is there any concern that you might have those ones who are more violent, because of the uprising, being a part of the migrants that are now coming into the Bahamas? And what are your concerns in terms of protecting your assets and protecting the men and women of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force once they would have brought them on board their local ships? Any contingency plans in place for that?
We have an organization in force and we train daily. We do drills on board our vessels, action drills, emergency drills, seamanship drills, hostile boardings. And so we conduct those drills to ensure that our members are abreast of the concerns and the realities. Right? We have the necessary personal protection equipment. We do range work, range practices to ensure that our members, their skills are good for using the firearms. And so when we understand the nature, we constantly train, we constantly prepare, and we have debriefing sessions and briefing sessions before each vessel sails to ensure that they do not lax themselves. They have to be ready. As I remember one time ago, the migrants used to be passive, but they're not anymore. Even the poachers used to be passive. But the cry is they're not prepared to go to the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services because of the conditions. And so they're very hostile and we are very deliberate in terms of particularly hostile boardings and how we approach and conduct those. We have orders for all of those. Right? And so we have taken the precautions, we continue to train. We have a battle rhythm now, whereby there's a period of maintenance, there's a period of sea training and refamiliarization, and then there's a period of deployment. Ensure that persons will go through that cycle at least once a year, because each phase is about 90 to 120 days. Maintenance, sea training, deployment, where you have an opportunity to apply those capabilities.
So there's protocols.
Most likely.
Commodore King, two quick questions for you. You talked about the technology that we have and that we should be a little more advanced than those persons who are coming into our country. A few years ago, I understand that the Bahamas government purchased a large number of drones. Obviously, with I think you said 100,000 nautical miles that we have to cover, are we utilizing the technology of drones to assist us in protecting our borders? First question. My second question, obviously we have a number of persons from various countries coming in. Niagara is one of our points. What are we doing to protect our seamen who are down there, be exposed to various medical issues? COVID is one of them, but there are many different diseases that come into our country from various places. What are we doing to protect the men and women, the brave men and women from the Royal Bahamas Defense Force from allowing them to be affected?
On board our vessels, we have either emergency medical technicians, we have medical teams. So we take every precaution there is. We have the personal protection equipment that those persons are doing when they conduct boardings. I remember early on in my career, We just went on board the vessels. But COVID in particular, would have taught us a lot. And so having to raise our standard in terms of safety, it's extremely high. It's at its highest. I would have established under my tenure a safety and occupational unit, specifically just for those items. Only thing that unit does is look at occupational hazards and give me recommendations of which I prioritize in terms of my limited funding to meet and ensure that those safety precautions and those equipment, everything is in place for the men and women of the Royal Bahamas Police. So that's occupational safety, a dedicated job, right? The first question you asked, we're making use of the coastal radars at this time. One situated at HMBS Coral Harbor here in the Providence, to protect southern end of the Providence. The one that is at Grayling Harbor, that is being used. That one has its limitation because it has a maximum effective range. I wouldn't disclose that range. Okay. The third one is being built out now at Ragged Island. The intent is, because the United States government would have approved some 11 coastal radars as donation to the Bahamas government. And they're going to be situated strategically to provide overlapping zone coverages in terms of our maritime domain events. That's one aspect of it. The drones that were purchased, those drones haven't been fully implemented in our operations as yet. Because the more expensive drones, the long-range drones that I'm reading on, we've only just gotten those. The academy is up and running. Persons are being trained in the use of those drones. But we have to put in the infrastructure. Those drones, wherever we have a coastal radar located, particularly in the south, the central and southern Bahamas, a coastal radar, you will have a long-range drone to run operations from there, which could go on for some 10 hours of operating time. We look forward to incorporating the drones that can be deployed from our vessels as well to give us that extended range. All right. In the procurement process, we're now moving close to getting comprehensive insurance for our drones. I simply couldn't afford to use those drones if they weren't insured. It's simply too costly. Right? And so those drones would come on. We're now looking at refitting King Air aircraft, and the government is excited about the proposal to assess the Caravan and 19-seater. That will boost our capabilities in terms of troop transport, logistics transport. It's going to have updated intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance equipment for night operations, etc. And so we're looking to expand that to complement coastal radars and the drones that we anticipate. But we still maintain what we do. For my joint in 87, is our vessels at sea, patrolling our waters, having overlapping and persistent patrols. Okay, so you're there, just as being with the bats, the fishers, right? You can use technology to limit patrolling, but you must be seen. All right, and we also use our aircrafts to complement our surface patrols to give us the wider coverage area to determine at any time who is in our domain. And so we continue to build out. We receive satellite imagery from the United States and Canada. Imagery over the Bahamas, areas of operation that we deem significant, and they give us satellite imagery readings. And so we would know whether the vessel is considered a dark vessel if the AIS system, the automatic identification systems are not on. They become a target of interest. Or if they appear to be some suspicious, they would be considered to be a dark vessel. And so we get those reports and we respond to those reports. And so we're using all available technology and we continue to build out more. Right? But I cannot restate in terms of migration. poaching, even drug running, because now you really have very limited drug or cannabis being moved through the Bahamas any longer. We have to be concerned about cannabis coming from America. There has been a shift. Cannabis is now coming from Canada and the United States because it's considered to be of better quality. But what we still have is the movement of cocaine from the Andean countries through Dominican Republic. And we would have had several intercepts by the police in our far-flung southeastern islands, where you have those airports that are not normally guarded or used unless there's some commercial airline coming in. So the cocaine is still moving, but the marijuana is coming from up north.
Thank you, Commodore. Commodore, I know you've been talking straight through for the last almost hour, but we have one more question. Are you able to take one more question?
Yes, please.
And that'll be the last question. The Commodore may be available at the end to take questions afterwards. Maybe make this is the last question because of timing.
Thank you, Commodore, for your vast knowledge and covering quite a bit for us. That point that you just finished before, I wanted to ask you about that, the corona and all the. Is what are you responsible for the area of the fish industry, the long line fishing and all of that? What is taking a toll on our waters? That's one part of it. And number two, I saw you did a big contraband the other day from a ship vessel. That was a Bahamian ship, definitely. And what happens to the fish? Do it go to market and sell at market value, or is it kept for the bounty? Nassau grouper. I was looking to see when it was coming to market. I would have loved to have a Nassau grouper, seeing that the season was closed.
As I would have mentioned earlier, we've been able to manage the poaching concerns extremely well. And I would say again, over the past 4.5 years. As a commander, a few years earlier, I would have undertaken a 20-year study of all of our arrests, reported sightings, everything, and I mapped it out. And that has been used as a tool, because when it comes to poaching, I know where they want to be every month within the year. And so they realize that we've caught on to them. And so it has retarded significantly. Now, the Dominicans now are now poaching the Jamaican banks, TCI. There's very little movement. And even when they come now, they stay in the Cuban territory and try to send their boats. And whenever we reach out to the Cuban Border Patrol to confirm if there's a Dominican vessel in their waters, disappointingly, we never get a response to those requests. And that's why I dealt with it openly. And the Cuban ambassador, we would have spoken. We have to agree that we would truly partner in order to address the new strategy being used. Now, with respect to long-line fishing, we have the technology and what I would call illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing on the high seas outside of our 200 nautical mile zone. And I believe it may be even closer. But as we acquire more resources and I'm able to place my ocean patrol vessels even further outwards, because I'm certain that we have a number of vessels, particularly from Asia. They come just outside of our exclusive economic zone in the Atlantic. And that is where you have a lot of fishing ongoing on the high seas. But I'm convinced that if they realize that we are not protecting that far out, they're probably going to encroach into 150 nautical miles. But I look forward, particularly the north of Abaco and Grand Bahama. That's the area of focus where we have a lot of Asian and those nationalities from across the globe who come and they just raid is rape and fishery products. But we're aware of that. We intend to guard our sovereignty out to the extremities of our $200 commands. What we intend to do a better job policing that. But I cannot, and I don't want to compromise our great Bahama. It's a very lucrative fish. Little Bahama Bank has its issues that we seek to address with our assets in Bimini, Grand Bahama during the holiday periods when American pleasure vessels tend to come across, fish, and then run back to the United States. So we're guarding against that. But the primary areas we have to guard against. If not, the Dominicans will come in here and they'll get raped and die.
Thank you so much, Commodore Dr. Raymond King, for the invaluable contribution that you make to the Bahamas and beyond, and for the wealth of knowledge that we have gathered here in this room. We thank you also for abiding by your mission, which is safeguarding the sovereignty of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, contributing to the maintenance of law and order, engaging in humanitarian mission alongside local, regional, and international partners. Additionally, the pursuit of excellence in guarding our heritage. Thank you, Commodore Dr. Raymond King, for leading a fine group of Bahamian men and women who do their, I am sure, endeavor best to protect the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. From Andros to Inagua to the Berry Islands to Maguana, the whole 242, we say thank you. So on behalf of the best Rotary Club in the Bahamas, please sign up today. See our membership chair, Keno McCartney. We say thank you. And you can come for your lovely gift. Now, I have to say this, I know your PR officer very well, Matthew Roll, and I said, man, give us a fun fact about your Commodore. He said he loves to exercise. So standing behind you is our president who loves to exercise. And also our PP, who was our Sergeant of Arms, Jamal Wave, who loved to exercise. So we welcome you into this club as you take them as reservists too for the Royal Bahamas, the best one. Thank you.
Fine, $20 for bad. If they do, you say. You can tell them that.
All right, let's be upstanding as we. For our executive.
I'm the fine.
Who got 68?
Fine.
I know there's some persons who have questions. We're gonna take some other questions. Who got 68? 68. Who was me? That's Sabrina?
Okay.
Here comes Sabrina. 68, 68, 68. That's the last two numbers. Let's be upstanding, please.
Just the fine. Okay.
Raffle and fines, Francina, how much total? What's total?
136. 136.
136, well done. Thank you. I'm gonna ask my buddy. I ain't calling my buddy name. My buddy know her name. Nikita is my buddy too, Nikita. Okay, but I mean my official buddy on the list. But Nikita is my buddy. Nikita, you can do something too. Okay, so my first buddy Tamika, so there's no jealousy in this room. You said the first two? That's what you call them now. Right. Then my second buddy, she can say the next two. Okay? Of the things we think, say, or do. Right.
Rotarian, guest, friends, Commodore, his crew. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. In
the truth. Is fair to all concerned. Build goodwill and better friendship. Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And will it be fun?
Now, final toast. Let's start.
Larry?
Let us be outstanding in our final toast. To all of you Rotarians and guests who are here, and those who are Zooming with us on air, let's join with Rotarians everywhere in a toast. Rotary all around the world.
Rotary around the world.
And by all of you, please, everybody come and take a picture before you leave. Let me have the front.
For those of you who still have questions, our Commodore has graciously consented to answer any of the questions as soon as we are done with the picture. He's consented to spend a couple of more minutes if you have some burning questions to ask him.
Come on, everybody.
So quickly, more quickly.
Chairs, you can have the chairs.
Yes.